Okay.
Okay.
So discussing all the collision course stuff. So what were you saying?
Okay, so we were just talking about sort of like different factions of scribes and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I quite like that idea. My original thinking was that this was sort of like the only location.
Mm-hmm.
But this can all change, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After Scribe, Gnarly, and Synax escape, and the terrible tragedy has befallen Svalbard, I thought that this could paint Scribe in a sort of outcasty kind of light, so that
Mm-hmm.
when he does encounter other scribes, they treat him as a bit of an outcast, and in fact, I think I've got some notes down here actually. Uh, Also, Scribe being one of the last survivors of his order makes him double badass. The other surviving scribes potentially blame him, and he becomes something of an outcast when he does encounter them. So that's sort of what I had for that. But I also kind of like the idea that there would be other groups and other bases of scribes around the universe as well.
Yeah, I would sort of here's the way how I'm thinking of it. So, like, just as we have different companies and different corporations who deal in enforcement and bounty hunting, we would also have different organizations and orders who deal in data delivery.
Mm.
So it's like the Svalbard group would be one specific order of scribes or one specific school of scribes. But there would be others who are not necessarily part of the same organization, but they are aware of each other and sometimes they even work together. So it's like
Yeah.
think of it like monastic orders in medieval Europe. Like you have your Franciscans, you have your Dominics, etc. So it's like each of those have somewhat different specifics, but they are also kind of following the same logic in their dealings.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we can have our cake and eat it.
Yep.
We can have Scribe being the sort of outcasty dude,
Yep.
while also there being other sort of scribe-like factions in the. Yes. Just yeah.
So basically, it's like in a way it is a very medieval logic that you have organizations that round up people of certain skill. So like you have your almost like union. So you have your cobblers union and you have your goldsmiths union and that sort of thing. And these organizations help to. So on one hand, they help with skill sharing, and on the other hand, they also work as a quality control. So in our future worlds, let's say you have the weaponsmiths, some sort of weaponsmiths association.
Mm.
It probably needs a better name, but not only do these specialists work in developing new weaponry, etc., but they also confirm quality and they also trade weapons and so on.
That do they also keep the sort of craft alive, like the
Yeah,
old
yeah.
crafts?
So it's like craft associations or guilds or such.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to biotech, then Microbe is a big exception because they are just so big that they are actually a company that runs other companies.
Mhm.
So while you might still have the sort of um, trade guilds for localized uh, bio eco developers. I would think that Microbe is so big that they are sort of outside scrutiny, or more like they help to control the others through this trade association.
Yeah, I think possibly I see Microbe. Like they obviously operate all over the cluster, right? They've got their hands in
Mhm.
many various pies. Uh, but I think their work ethic is indicative of our chaos style,
Mm.
whereas these sort of guilds and the sort of people who quality control and that kind of thing, yes, they are associated in some ways to the businesses of our chaos, but then they're more frequently found on the outliers, like places
Mhm.
like Windan and places like that. Uh, like for example, this I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming that the Scribe Order, Svalbard, is in close proximity to the Void Cloud, and
Mm.
I'm talking not close enough to be damaged by it, um, but they're not in a system separate from the Void Cloud. Like they
Oh,
sort of
okay.
probably occupy a similar area to
Mhm.
Gnarly.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Uh,
basically, they would be the go-to data hub for investigation, as far
hmm
as Nali is concerned.
It just made sense to Gnarly.
Yeah.
And I think because, and this is a point I raised in the document as well, because of his lifestyle, like he doesn't seem to have that many expenses,
Mhm.
but he seems to, like his job as a salvager and the fact that he doesn't have any expenses, he can afford these little sort of pet projects every now and then.
Yeah. Actually, I was thinking the same thing yesterday. It's like he has accumulated some wealth that he is not using, and
hmm
right now this strange robot has picked his interest. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna put some of my savings into good use, and I'm gonna hire a data analysis.
Yeah.
How a lot of unrelated notes, or like some are like world building notes, some are chronology notes. So for a second, I wanted to confirm the timeline of events. Well, not timeline of events, but timeline of stories.
Right.
So like, let's see, the sort of three big uh, three big pre-points to collision course are Seeker, Scribe and the Doctor, and Salvage Mission.
hmm
And I'm thinking which ones we're gonna release separately, and which ones would have to be sort of bundled in with the main story. Or is it so that, well, Seeker is out, Scribe and the Doctor is in the works, and Salvage Mission needs the bits added, and then it's also, well, it's basically in the works as well. So we can release these other stories and then start the collision course when they start intermingling.
I'm not sure I follow fully.
I mean, in a practical release schedule sense. So if we go if we assume for a second that the collision course is basically, it's a novel length. I can see it happening,
Yes.
building
Oh
up to a
yes.
novel. I think we won't be able to manage it too short. The novel can consist of individual short stories, or it can just be one big entity. But I was sort of toying with the idea that whether Scribe and the Doctor and Salvage Mission are already part of this novel, or should they be separate?
Hmm. That's a good question. Like, do we sort of include them as kind of pre prologue sort of chapters?
They don't even have to be prologues. So, for example, if what I'm thinking here is
Ah.
that if the collision course stories happen from different perspectives, so we have Scribe perspective, we have Nolly perspective, we have them together perspective, uh, and especially if the events unfold in a series of short stories, then these two could already be like part of the bigger story to begin with.
Mira's Legion complicates things there,
Oh,
though.
okay. So it would be easier to release them as separate stories, and then once the collision course gets into a releasable form, then we will figure out how to package them so that it's clear that these two will be together. So it's like right now we shall treat them as individual bits, and
Mm-hmm.
then later on we can say, okay, and this story belongs here.
With Scribe and the Doctor, Salvage Mission, and Mira's Legion, there's probably enough there for like a sort of novella length thing
hmm
by bundling them all together. But
Yeah,
the
but if Mirror's
perspective
Legion,
change.
yeah, but if Mirror's Legion is a separate story anyway.
Yeah, Scribe only really turns up in there. They're he's at the bay, he's at the station. Mira's Legion turn up. They have a bit of a sort of. They come to an agreement, and then at the end of the story, they go their separate ways.
Mhm.
So he's not a massive part of that story. He is a secondary
Mhm.
character. Um, I just think if we bundled them all together, there'd be a massive problem with like, oh, so we're with Gnarly now, and then chapter later, oh, now we're with this new character Scribe. Oh, and now this next chapter with this group called Mirror's Legion. What the fuck's
Ah, no,
going
no,
on
no, no, no,
here?
no, no. That's not what I meant. I'm discarding Mirror's Legion altogether. That's a separate
Yeah.
thing. So Mirror's Legion isn't concerning me, but I was thinking the bigger story of Collision Course could include Scribe and the Doctor and Salvage Mission.
Hmm.
But I think well, since the short stories are likely to take shape, well, they are already taking shape. Anyway, so yeah, basically this is not the storytelling question. This is a formatting and marketing question
I
for
think if we
later on.
stick with the original plan of
Mhm.
just releasing the short
Mhm.
story
Mhm.
collection, it solves a lot of problems.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit slow today. I'm sorry.
I was
All
no,
like,
that's the
yeah.
thing. I was sort of starting to think how to get away with less writing,
Mm.
and like, oh, but we already have these two stories. But
It's
yeah, it would
I
be. I think it would be a cleaner process to build up the plot lines of Collision Course as its own thing.
hmm
So in this sense, we shall treat Seeker, Scribe and the Doctor and Salvage Mission as independent stories that will all lead up to Collision Course.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's probably the most sensible approach.
Yep.
So
Yep.
far, I mean, it could all change. We could have a brilliant flash of inspiration and
And everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, scribe the Doctor Salvage Mission. This is another. I'm having another sort of release-related thought. So, if we're thinking of this short story collection that we sort of have right now, that we have planned right now, so that would have Scribe and the Doctor, Salvage Mission,
One Last Job.
One Last Job, and Destiny.
Yeah.
And actually, this starts making sense in terms of the quote-unquote big vortexes as well, because those 4 stories would represent both of the bigger character vortexes. And then we shall sort of hop into a separate path and just follow the Scribe and Nali vortex. Yeah, I can see it.
You are still recording this, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Pure genius! Like, half of the recording is like, I'm thinking,
At least 3 minutes of me just not getting it as well.
but it is
I'm
so
close.
clear in my head! How can you not get it?
That's alright. I'm on track now. I'm on the same train as you now. It's all good.
What we could do, this is another random thought regarding rebranding. So, Salvage Mission is the name of the story in its current state,
Mm-hmm.
but in the enhanced state, when we add the part about the strange logs and all that, maybe also rename it and use what was the Synex files or Synex logs or
The Synex list.
the Synex list
Yeah.
or Synex files, wasn't it? I don't know. But anyway, maybe the added and lengthened story, maybe change the title to Synex list then? Just a thought.
Is it the Synex files?
I don't know. We can ask our army of proofreaders. Not prequels. Oh, I have a very stupid question about Mirror's Legion when it comes to branding.
Mm-hmm.
So, I noticed that the crew is like small.
Very small.
So,
The Legion thing is deliberate.
okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, right, cool.
So basically, it's an in-universe joke, right?
Well, sort of. They're trying to project power, and they're not doing an entirely convincing job of it, but the name sort of just sticks. So yeah, it's kind of a joke and sort of them thinking one thing, but it's not really true in reality.
Legion,
so,
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask.
It's not a stupid question at all, because believe me, I was asking the same thing. It's sort of a pressed-in reasoning behind it, because the name Mirror's Legion has just been a thing
Yeah.
for ages. I don't know what the deal is with that, but it just works so well. And in the original Mirror's Legion, they're sitting around the table at the end, and they're like, oh, and they're like, Mirror's Army, Mirror's Squad, and things like that, and they're sort of rolling their eyes and turning their noses up at them,
Think
and then one of
bigger.
them, yeah, and then one of them's like, oh, Legion, like Mirror's Legion. Mirror's just like, oh, it rolls off the tongue nicely, and they sort of
Hmm.
discuss why that would be a good name, and then
Okay.
settle on it. So yeah.
Yeah. So if it's basically if it's explained in universe, then I have no quarrel.
Okay, cool. Yeah, coming up soon. Release of the website on. Oh no, there's 2 more parts, I think, or possibly 3 more parts.
Hmm.
I put a strike through 8 parts and changed it to 9 parts, so people can see on the website that, oh, it was 8 parts, but now something's changed and now it's
Mm.
9 parts. And I think that's when we split the scribe and them discovering the ship chapters apart. So
Okay. Where was I? Yeah, I don't have any brilliant ideas. I think the sort of starting point, or this like starting assumption for the collision course is what I was trying to nail down. That they have the data, they have the list, they have people in the list, and now they will try and look these people up, and then what happens as they do so will already provide plenty of mishaps and adventure. And then in this particular timeline, or like right now we haven't even exceeded one timeline. So in this particular universe, our Jewel Hopper is one of those people in the list who they actually can locate and who joins them. And okay, here's another thought. So they start following the list, and I would say over the course of a few chapters they will run into some dead ends, but maybe they would also run into some people who will be some data will be snatched before their very eyes, or like there will be some leads that they want to check out, that somebody is starting to interfere and either kill those people off or extract them, or do something.
Some leads that they want to check out, they get snatched out, slash killed. Sometimes
So this could be
in front of them.
yeah. So this what I'm thinking is that initially the first leads that they follow will be dead ends. Then some leads that they follow will cross their paths with other characters, like Jewel, which is like successful contact yo. And then from some point on, after Jewel has joined them and learned of the strange logs as well, from there on, more and more leads that they follow will be interfered. So basically, at first it is an innocent data hunt. Then it becomes a little bit more real, and then shit gets even more real, and the bigger forces will start to interfere. and thought on Joule and data. So whether a data bundle is sent to Joule in advance or like before they get together, or whether Joule sees the logs or the files once she has already joined the guys. But whatever method she reads them with, the logs on her should refer a lot of the events that we have in Seeker, and we should have like multiple accounts of those events and multiple outcomes. And this is when it comes to files on Joule and other hoppers, this is where we should already bring in the idea that certain bits in Seeker were not as random as they seemed, or like, yes, it was very convenient that her old enemy was in the prison, and he was there because he was put there. And also bring up the prison guard who stayed behind, and like, why would somebody do that? Highly suspicious, yo. We could even revisit some of the locations from Seeker with a greater understanding.
I like revisiting old locations.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a thing in books.
Yeah, so it's like we visit some of the same places, but now with a whole different purpose and whole different perspective, and also a whole new set of questions. Well, Trelasi 2 would be the location where Fortune has settled. And this is where we would learn that Trelasi 2 has like whole big human settlements in the less favorable climates. So that's like one thing, just to discover some more. But when it comes to, let's say, well, we have our Chaos 4 itself. Rystar hub would probably be off limits, at least for Joule. So if they want to sneak something out of Rystar, then they will have to recruit someone's help.
Raptor.
Yeah, so Raptor can have his moment of glory. So let's say they might send somebody in Rystar. Somebody has to infiltrate Rystar and rendezvous with Raptor.
There's Vowels. Raptor. Oh my god, I spelled it wrong as well. Oh, it is a Z. Okay. Vowels.
And at some point, I totally wanna utilize the quote-unquote old guard, who's like the trusted lieutenant of the hoppers, who has a great freedom of movement and sort of tendency to infiltrate places. Oh, and let's see, Rystar Station itself is not necessarily off limits to civilians either. So it's like, if they can fake some business there, they might be able to get close enough to the Seekers to make contact with Raptor. It's like they will send Raptor a sample or advertisement on a new generation of snooze capsule. Basically some sort of obscure obscure shit because he will be under scrutiny again. He's always in the spotlight.
That acts as like a secret message.
Yeah.
Sierra Madre.
Well, that worked once.
Hmm. And then this is possibly also the point where we could bring in those motherfuckers from
Yes,
Seeker.
exactly. So they would be the ones who work against our heroes contacting Raptor, and they would be they would, let's see, well, they would still be pissed on Harper's, and it doesn't matter that their quote-unquote employers uh, would want to hire Jewel because reasons, but the motherfuckers would be so bitter that they would just, yeah, it doesn't matter that our bosses wanna hire this bitch. I want her dead. And at this point, they would know that the Hoppers sort of got away with something. So basically, there would be a lot of personal personal bitterness toward the Harpers. And on the grander scheme, or on the grander scale, we can now open up or lift the veil a little bit on those who have hired the motherfuckers and who probably have larger scale issues at mind. So they could be servo related, and they could be part of the same process or similar process as the scribe and the doctor research facility was in. So it's like they would be the link between local servo and big servo. Because I'm thinking, like, basically
Hang on, they are the link between
the local servo, local universe servo, and Murphy servo.
Cool.
And this leads me to another bigger point when it comes to our heroes. Their basis of adventure is looking up people who pop up in these files and who have suspiciously repeating data about them. And on the other hand, I think we should bring in a few Murphy operatives, like people from Murphy, or people who Murphy have assigned to do shit in this timeline. So, like, timeline influencers. Well, not even influencers, but like timeline agents, basically. And in this, in Collision Course in particular, the timeline agents or Murphy agents wouldn't be central characters, but we should sort of get the idea that these guys exist. That they keep an eye on things, and that they keep an eye on certain people and certain situations, and that they are acting in the interest of something bigger. So the guard that stays behind when it comes to the prison station would be one of such guys.
Yeah.
In fact, this gives me another idea. So, so let's say that our heroes are trying to revisit the prison station because they have figured out that there has to be a person in there who knows more, or like who has key knowledge and who knows suspiciously much about the Hoppers, and who came in there with jewels, all the rest. And this time they can't just waltz in with seeker credentials. So this might be another reason why they require Raptor's help, or maybe they hire somebody from the seeker, or like, so basically they would have to either hire somebody or work with somebody who can safely pass the perimeter or fake it. Because the perimeter doesn't know who's inside the ship as long as they have the right code, so it could be that they just steal somebody's credentials.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. I like that even better than sending Raptor in.
Gnarly and everybody on this ship could easily fake the necessary codes, I think.
No, but that's the thing. They don't they shouldn't have to fake the codes, but they have to have actual seeker badge.
Hmm. Okay. Well, let me make a note of that.
Yeah, so they would need seeker, either a seeker badge or steal actual codes, because of the contracts between seekers and herons.
Mm-hmm. This sounds good. This sounds like a discussion that the group is going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what's our next move? Well, we can go about this two ways. We can.
Yeah, like who's the next in our list? Well, this guy shows up a lot. And this could be one of the points when it comes to actually checking the data in the list. So like they have the repeating events, repeating people, dates that haven't happened yet, and then amongst it they might spot a name or a person who doesn't repeat, and that's like, okay, this is an odd one out, we have to check him. Or when it comes to the quote-unquote Murphy operatives or Murphy agents, then it could be that they are the ones who have signed those logs. So it's like, report by such and such, and when they cross-examine the data, like, who is such and such, and this person doesn't seem to exist. And then somebody else is like, wait a minute, I've seen this one. He was one of the...
Sorry. When they examine the data, when it comes to Murphy agents, Murphy operatives, they are the ones who have signed those logs. When they, meaning our heroes,
yes,
examine the data.
So when our heroes examine the logs, they will also take note that, hey, this person has signed all these reports, and according to the census, this guy does not exist, or this guy is only a baby. So basically, they notice that some people have repeating information about them. So those are the people of interest to Murphy, whose lives are being tracked. but there is the other group is the people who are out of place. People of interest. Let me try to put it in a very eloquent manner. So the Synex files that include many reports on many people and locations and events over many timelines give roughly two kinds of hints. So the sort of hint collection number one is the people and places that our heroes are familiar with, or like quote unquote normal people, normal places, whose data repeats and repeats and repeats and comes up with the timestamps that have not occurred yet. And the second.
Hang on.
I'm recording.
Yeah, I know, but I want to get it down so I understand it. But haven't.
So basically, this is the content of reports. Normal people and places repeated in an abnormal manner.
And two.
And the second collection of hints is the people who have made the reports. So these are the names and places that also repeat all over the place, that repeat as makers of these reports. And this is the data that when you cross-examine it with the current timeline information, you will discover that this person is only a child, or this person died a long time ago. So basically the idea here is that you find names and places that shouldn't exist like this.
How?
Yeah, so first circle of hints, or first collection of hints, is normal places reported in a weird way, and the second collection of hints is weird people popping up in normal places. And I would think that when as our heroes conduct their search, then at first they only look for the first circle of hints. So at first they are only trying to find people who have reports about them. But then, as things start escalating, they will turn their attention to the Murphy agents, to the people who shouldn't be there, and that's where they start looking those up. And one of the places where I know that they could find such a person is in the Trelasi prison station, among the guards, among the population, the quote-unquote the guard who stayed behind. Oh, and regarding enforcement agencies, when our heroes would try to recruit seeker help, then we also have to remember that Jewel is now a proper outcast as well, so Jewel cannot directly contact Raptor. That was the deal. So she shouldn't even show up in Rystar Station. So if some of them go to Rystar Station, then she has to either stay on ship or stay on orbit, or basically she can't show herself.
Oh, we've got a crew of outcasts.
Yes. Well,
I feel
so
like this is a
so
trope.
far, yeah. Well, so far, Nali isn't an outcast yet.
I think he's a self-imposed outcast.
Well, yeah,
right?
he's a recluse.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Uh,
Oh, this. Yeah, I love this. This is. I'm kind of excited to see how it all resolves. To be honest with you. Like, hang on. How are we gonna get out of this?
this is an ongoing mission. We don't know yet.
Mm.
But yeah, right now I think a lot of the plotting here comes down to just adding the logical connections. Like, if our heroes want to achieve this, and the conditions that they're operating on are such and such, then they would have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Occam's razor, right?
No, this is just sort of like this. Occam's razor has nothing to do with this.
Okay, I thought it was like just take the simple approach.
No, this is not about simple. This is about putting what we have together. So it's like it's not plotting by just pulling an idea out of your ass. It's more like plotting by following the logic that you have already set up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's like if I want to go to bar tonight, and if we have already established that tonight will be a thunderstorm, then I will choose my method of traveling accordingly. That sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, if they need help, if they we know that Jewel no longer has direct contact with Raptor. We know that, or we have established that to access the prison station of Trelasi, you would need, you could use Seeker credentials. Jewel would want to ask for Raptor's help getting those credentials. So how do we get from these starting points to the action?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's more like choosing a path in game. Like, if your hero is a heavy, and if your enemies are, I don't know, if your enemies are robots, then you will choose such and such weapon to fight them.
Mm-hmm. Logistically speaking, Jewel and by extension Eclipse don't have a ship anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And also, after the events of what happened at Svalbard, despite my incredible fondness for Gnarly's ship theory, I'm currently of the opinion, feel free to disagree, I'm currently of the opinion that Gnarly is forced to sort of leave theory behind and join Scribe on Codex.
Okay.
So do they all end up on Codex? And if so, that's going to be a logistical nightmare, because in my head, Codex is, it's a sort of medium-ish size ship, not massive, not tiny, but most of it is given over to sort of data storage devices and data processing suites and that sort of thing. It's not. It's essentially built for Scribe and Scribe alone. So that's going to lead to some interesting points.
Yeah, well, that could be a plot point of how they manage in a ship that's not meant for that thing. But we also have to remember that Jewel is a wealthy heir.
Mm-hmm.
So
Even and I make this point, even if she wasn't the inheritor of Harper House, the money that she acquired from the job that she did, the Finding Fortune job,
hmm
that alone is more than enough to cover an Alexis, all right, with change. So
mm,
I mean, she'd be
yeah.
more than well.
So well, she and Fortune did have a ship at the end of Seeker, and now the question is, what did they do with that ship? It could be that, well, if she dropped Fortune off, or it could be that she gave that ship to Fortune.
Mm-hmm.
But even so, let's say I would say that she has enough resources
I
to.
always thought that ship was a loner, if I'm honest. I always just had it in my head that they borrowed it from someone or
No,
something.
why would they?
I don't know. That was
Huh.
just the what my head came up with. Yeah, I like the idea that she leaves the ship with Fortune and sort of
Yeah.
makes her way back to the spaceport, or he drops her off at the spaceport and then takes the ship off somewhere else, and she finds her way back to Archaeos.
Let me think what the logistics would be. Yeah, I would think that the quote unquote space pirates company will arrange the replacement ship for her, which could be a temporary thing until she gets back to Archaeos and maybe strips it for parts. But yeah, in any case, Jewel has enough home base backup to
Oh yes.
to either grab a ship from the family fleet or just arrange a new one.
I'm gonna miss Solitaire. You know, that ship was cool.
But that is a Seeker vessel.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, so
Did,
what's the keywords right now? So our heroes. Our heroes. Scribe, Nolly, Jewel, plus Eclipse,
mm-hmm. And Synax.
plus Scribe. So Nolly plus Linux. Helpers and contacts. Rapture. Let's just call them space pirates.
It's always good to have a sort of rogue faction in your back pocket.
Yeah. And there is also the street army of Hoppers.
Oh
But
yes.
but they kind of came out from the streets at the end of Seeker, so they could be they are like um,
Would if the people that Jewel and our heroes keep encountering start turning up dead and missing, would Jewel not bring fortune with her just to ensure his safety?
Probably. It's like it could be that he doesn't want to come, and then something
Yeah.
happens, and he is forced to tag along.
Okay, let me make a quick note of that. Our notes are the best.
Yep. So yeah, some of these are a little bit open-ended lists.
Mm-hmm. This is awesome. I'm looking forward to solidifying Eclipse as a character as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think two of my favourite things are coming up with characters and describing the ships that the
Mm-hmm.
crew are hanging out in. So this is hitting all the right buttons for me.
Mm.
And then putting the story on top of that, it's just like, oh my god.
These reporters. yeah, this about sums up the escalating scale of things, and of course, in each stage, they can run into specific problems, but because they are getting closer and closer to quote unquote forbidden knowledge, they will draw attention and and will find more and more opposition.
Mm-hmm. As they get closer to their goal, the pushback
Mhm.
is greater.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it could be now. This is this is getting ahead of things a little bit, and might be outside the scope of this story. But basically, the more they get away with, the more valuable they become to Murphy. So at some point, I think we're facing extraction. So at some point, they would have to be pulled into Murphy proper and briefed as agents. So it's like they would have their own version of deja vu.
That's going to be quite a shock to our heroes.
Yes, but I don't think this is a part of this story. It's more like next one, maybe. I don't know. We shall see.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It might pop up.
yeah. So it's like if the story inevitably leads to that point, then we were kind of have to bring it up, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And
It could just be like a tail end thing where Scribe's preparing to leave the ship, go back to Codex, and as he's stepping off the ramp, a guy approaches him and he's like, "Oh, I'm afraid I can't let you do that. Roll credits." Something to that effect.
No.
No?
One thing I'm certain, like, this story has to wrap up as a standalone.
Okay.
So even if it leads up to the next adventure, it does have to wrap up as a standalone, because I hate those last minute sort of
Okay.
ew. No way.
Alright. It has to be like Seeker. Seeker was a standalone, but a lot of people have been like,
yeah.
"So when's the sequel coming?"
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, exactly. And another thing when it comes to when it comes to the bigger picture and extracting into Murphy, they would have to have an established situation with local servo by then, or at least they would have to sort of run into servo. So it's like Scribe has run into Doctor so far, but thing is that part of Murphy build-up is that Servo is a bad guy. Everybody fights Servo. Oh no, Servo runs the place. So this is like this is a bit of a set dynamics which would be very useful to apply to this story vortex as well. Of course, it could be that they have slightly different dynamic, and maybe they will, maybe once they're extracted, they might be just thrown into a parallel timeline at first. Oh.
Here we go.
So, again, this might be a little bit too much for this particular story, but let's say that these guys do get extracted by the end of this adventure, and they will be placed they will be jumped back and forth a little bit. At first they won't be properly extracted, but just jiggled a little bit, and that's when they will be thrown into a parallel timeline where the quote-unquote bad jewel was killed, and Wraith is like, "Oh my god, you're alive, baby." So yeah, the running into Lava Wraith would require Murphy intervention, but it could be at the intervention could happen at the point where they haven't been fully recruited yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
So they don't really know what's going on.
yeah. So it's like this would be again, this would be their version of deja vu, but it doesn't have to come with such a big time jump. It could be, so yeah. I'm thinking like this would be the next adventure, but the next adventure could be that they are like partially briefed, and they are sent on a job to extract somebody else from, let's say, from a few years before, who was alive then and who won't be in their timeline. So it's like it could be a sort of bizarro world where some things happen as they know it and some happen all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody should be dead, because otherwise they wouldn't be plugged in there.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea that in like the book that comes after Collision Course, that Wraith kind of hangs out with the crew and is actually a useful part of their party.
Yeah, and he's kind of a nice guy.
Yeah, right. I hated that dude, but actually I can see him in this light. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah. That's going to be a very interesting meeting when Jewel hasn't fully been briefed on what's going on and Wraith is just there. Like, what the fuck?
Well, first order of business, she would try to kill him.
Yes, absolutely.
And he would try to embrace her.
Yes. Yeah, we're pretty much on track with this. I think we spent too long with those characters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole alternate Wraith, alternate timeline. I mean, we've speculated on that one before, so it's like we just have to find the right slot for this.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, what a twist! As Detective Pikachu says, so twisty.
Right. I think we can sort of put a stop here.
Yeah, sounds good. I think I need some kind of nutrients.
That
And
is
then
an excellent idea.
And then I need to read an email from Carl.
Mm-hmm.
So, I might need to stock up on snacks as well.
I'm gonna stop recording here. Give me a second.
Alright.
Bam.